Okay, so today we're diving deep into something uh, truly fundamental to being human, social identity.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't just some abstract idea, right? It's a really powerful force. It shapes, well, everything from our own personal well-being to, the biggest societal conflicts.
Absolutely.
We're going to unpack a really profound paradox here. How this essential need we have for belonging can be both a powerful shield, crucial for our health, our happiness,
Yeah.
and also a dangerous weapon, something that fuels prejudice and harm. So, okay, let's get into it.
It's a fascinating topic and, as you say, deeply complex. What's really striking, I think, is that the origins of social identity theory actually come from researchers grappling with some of humanity's darkest moments, historically speaking.
Oh,
So yeah, this deep dive won't just be about understanding ourselves better, but also really exploring both sides, the vital benefits and the very real dangers that come with this powerful need we all have to belong.
okay, let's cut right to it then. Social identity, it's not just a label, is it? It's more like the fundamental us within the we.
That's a good way to put it.
It's how our sense of self is kind of forged by the groups we belong to. For anyone familiar with the concept, it's that really powerful part of your self-concept that comes from group memberships,
Right.
like your gender, ethnicity, culture, maybe your role right now as a college student, or your job.
Exactly. All those things.
But here's where it gets really interesting and, frankly, a bit disturbing. This seemingly straightforward idea has this complex, almost dark origin story. You mentioned the theorists were wrestling with a really unsettling question.
That's right. They were trying to answer something incredibly difficult. How is it possible? How could millions of people in Germany, a nation known for its culture, for figures like Einstein, Freud, or him, how could they participate in or even just tolerate the horrific atrocities of World War II?
Yeah.
We're talking about the systematic killing of millions, Jews, gay men, Roma people, and others. These weren't, weak minds. Yet so many supported it actively or passively. And after a lot of research, the conclusion they reached, the one that became the foundation of social identity theory, was, well, it was unsettling.
What was it?
They found that a powerful, single German identity provided individuals with pride, belonging, meaning,
Okay.
and that, in turn, allowed them to accept or even justify those horrific actions.
Wow. So the identity itself was the justification.
In a way, yes. So the initial finding was stark. When our social identity basically consumes us, it can tragically set the stage for prejudice and discrimination. The theory was mainly developed through the 60s to the 80s, largely to explain exactly that prejudice.
That's chilling. That origin story really sets a stark tone. But, okay, if identity could be so destructive, where are the benefits?
Yeah.
There has to be a positive side to this fundamental human drive to connect, right, to belong.
Right.
What did psychologists find when they started looking beyond just the shadows?
Well, that's the fascinating flip side. They found profound, scientifically backed benefits. People with strong social identities, they actually live longer and healthier lives.
Really? Longer?
Yeah, the data is pretty compelling. They're less likely to develop diseases, less likely to get into trouble with the law, more likely to thrive in society generally. It's quite clear that simply belonging somewhere, feeling part of a group, brings tangible advantages to your well-being.
So the challenge then is balancing.
Exactly. Balancing the positive stuff, the belonging, the meaning, the connection with those inherent dangers like prejudice and excluding others. It's a real tightrope walk.
It sounds like it. And, to really get identity and belonging, we probably need to talk about the opposite too. Loneliness. Such a strange emotion, isn't it? Because it creates this weird internal conflict, almost pulls you in two completely opposite directions at the same time.
That's a very, very apt description. On one hand, yeah, loneliness is a deeply negative emotion. It actually activates parts of the brain like the amygdala and hippocampus.
The fight or flight bits.
Exactly, the fight or flight centers. So it makes us feel hypervigilant, isolated, wary of other people.
Right.
But, and here's the paradox, loneliness also activates dopamine-rich areas in the brain.
The reward centers.
The motivational centers, yeah. The ones that drive us towards goals. And in this case, the goal is social connection. So it simultaneously pushes us away from people while motivating us to reach out.
That sounds exhausting.
It can be incredibly psychologically taxing, yeah. And prolonged loneliness, it's strongly correlated with depression, substance use, high-risk behaviors. It's serious. And researchers have even identified two distinct types.
Okay, what are those two types? How different?
So the first is social loneliness. You might call it social isolation. This is when you feel subjectively like you just don't have enough social connections.
Like quantity.
Kind of,
Yeah.
yeah. Think about it. If you got sick, is there genuinely no one you could call? If your car broke down, is there nobody at all who could help? It's that feeling of, I don't have a network. And it is subjective. Some people need hundreds of friends to feel connected. Others are fine with just a few close ones.
Right. Depends on the person.
Exactly. Then the second type is emotional loneliness. This usually comes from losing a really deep emotional relationship, like a parent, a partner, a very close friend dies or leaves.
The quality of connection.
Precisely. And again, subjective. Some need lots of deep connections, others just one or two really strong ones. And importantly, these two types can overlap, and often do.
Which makes it even more complicated.
Definitely.
So, okay, loneliness is this internal state, often subjective. But what about when someone explicitly rejects you? Like a breakup or not getting a job or being kicked out of a group. That feels different. That's social rejection, right?
It is different, yeah.
And the impact of that kind of rejection. You mentioned something about it being surprisingly physical.
Yes, and this really gets to the why. Why does rejection hurt so much? The science here is quite stark. The brain actually reacts to social rejection. Well, it reacts in the same way it reacts to physical pain.
The same way.
Essentially, yes. Specifically, the opioid receptors, the very same ones that get activated when you, say, break a bone or cut your hand, they light up during social rejection.
Wow.
Which is exactly why people often describe heartbreak as feeling like a physical wound. It kind of is to your brain.
That makes so much sense.
And what's even more surprising, maybe, is research showing that Tylenol, just regular acetaminophen, can actually reduce the pain of social rejection.
No way, Tylenol. For a broken heart, that sounds almost too simple.
It sounds strange, I know. But the studies suggest it works on those same pain pathways.
Is that just about masking the pain, though, or does it tell us something deeper about how we process these things?
Well, it definitely drives home how physically visceral these emotional experiences are for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And interestingly, it challenges the usual advice. You know, after a rejection, people often say, take time for yourself.
Right. Isolate, reflect.
But the research actually suggests the opposite. Much like recovering from a physical injury, the faster you reconnect socially, the faster you tend to heal emotionally.
Huh. So don't wallow.
Pretty much. The data suggests rejection pain typically lasts maybe 60 to 90 days if left alone, but actively reconnecting socially can cut that down to around 20 days.
Big difference.
And the Tylenol study suggested it could reduce it even further to about 2 weeks.
Incredible.
And all of this just underscores why belonging matters so profoundly, cognitively, emotionally. We seek belonging for, well, two main reasons, fundamentally. To build our self-awareness and to bolster our self-esteem.
Okay.
And this drive connects directly to what thinkers like William James talked about, our self-concept, which is basically everything you believe about yourself, all your attributes, role.
For who you think you are.
Exactly. And our self-esteem, which is how you evaluate that self-concept. Am I good, bad, worthy?
Right.
And James made a key distinction within that self-concept between personal identity, what makes you unique, your personality, temperament,
But me.
and social identity, what comes from the outside world.
Yeah.
Your gender, ethnicity, job, culture, the U.S.
The use part of me.
Got it. So for self-awareness, you're saying we use other people to figure out who we are and how we should act. Can you give an example?
Oh, absolutely. On a micro level, constantly. We look around for cues all the time. Like, imagine if I suddenly, right now, stood on this table and started dancing.
Okay. I'd be confused.
You'd probably glance at other people, right?
Yeah.
Try to gauge their reactions. Is he joking? Has he lost it? Should I do something?
Yeah, definitely look around.
It's an innate thing, almost subconscious.
Mhm.
We use the group to interpret the situation. And for self-esteem, we use others to evaluate our own worth.
Oh.
Well, belonging validates us, either through what psychologists call self-enhancement, like someone in your group gives you a good job and it feels good,
Yeah.
or through trust, feeling safe, knowing the people around you aren't harmful. Evolutionarily, it makes sense. You enter a new place, you quickly sort people age, gender, ethnicity, familiarity, and you gravitate towards the groups where you feel safest. It's a fundamental survival drive, really. It makes sense. So this core drive to connect and these different parts of identity, can focusing on that social identity actually protect you against loneliness? You mentioned an experiment.
Yes, a pivotal one, and the results were really striking. They had students randomly assign them to think about either a social identity or a personal identity.
Okay, how?
The social identity group was asked to List 5 positive qualities about being a college student,
Right?
focusing on the shared group identity.
Right.
The personal identity group was asked to list 5 positive qualities that make you unique, focusing inward.
And the results.
Remarkable. The students who reflected on their social identity being a college student reported much less loneliness than their baseline level before the experiment.
Less lonely just by thinking about the group.
Exactly. But the students who focused only on their personal uniqueness, they reported almost double the loneliness compared to their baseline.
Wow. Double the loneliness just from focusing on being unique.
Yeah, it's an incredible difference.
So focusing on that shared identity, it really acts like a shield against loneliness.
Precisely. The takeaway is powerful. Focusing too much on just individuality can actually heighten loneliness, whereas focusing on a shared identity clearly fosters connection.
That makes sense.
And this insight, it's not just academic, it's actually been integrated into therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT
All right.
by helping people identify and strengthen their positive group connections as part of the therapy, making it more effective in combating loneliness and depression.
That's practical.
Very. And it connects to a pretty grave biological reality. The lack of belonging is actually a stronger predictor of mortality and morbidity, dying early or getting sick, than smoking, diet, or exercise.
Stronger than smoking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Loneliness weakens the immune system. It can even alter genetic expression. Some studies have compared the biological impact of chronic loneliness to smoking, like 15 packs of cigarettes in a week.
15 packs. That's staggering.
It is. It just hammers home.
Yeah.
We are literally wired for connection.
Wow. Okay. Wired for connection. And lack of it is that damaging. It really makes you think, what happens when that shield, that social identity, is suddenly lost or even deliberately stripped away?
The consequences are severe. Often it leads to a kind of self-destruction, sadly. Take occupational identity loss.
Like retirement.
Exactly. Men aged 55 to 65, often facing retirement, historically had the highest suicide risk. For many, their job was their core identity.
Yeah, losing that.
Devastating. And we're actually seeing women show similar patterns now, as careers play increasingly central roles in their sense of self, too.
Any other examples?
A really profound one is cultural erasure. Think about the massive losses of identity forced upon Native American communities through things like boarding schools.
Right, where they tried to erase their culture.
Deliberately stripped kids of their language, traditions, community ties, their identity. And crucially, research now shows that reclaiming that identity, reconnecting with heritage, has been powerfully shown to improve health, well-being, even longevity in those communities.
So identity isn't just psychological, it's physical, communal.
Deeply. Ultimately, prolonged, severe identity loss can manifest in really destructive ways. Withdrawal from work, from relationships, substance abuse, depression, suicidal behavior, even criminal activity or aggression. It cuts deep.
So,
Yeah.
we've seen identity as this powerful shield, vital for belonging, well-being, self-concept, even physical health.
Yeah.
But let's circle back to that warning from the start, the potential for harm. The weaponization, that's not just history, right? It's still relevant.
Absolutely. Social identity theory also perfectly explains how harmful group behaviors, like prejudice, still happen today. It often starts with something called social comparison theory.
Comparing ourselves to others.
Exactly. We naturally do it to boost our own self-esteem. It can take two main forms. There's upward comparison, where we compare ourselves to groups we see as dominant or better off. Sometimes that inspires us.
But
Sometimes it fosters resentment or feelings of inadequacy. Then there's downward comparison, where we compare ourselves to groups we perceive as less than us in order to feel superior.
Okay. And both can be bad.
Both can tragically lead to prejudice and discrimination. Anything from everyday bias or microaggressions all the way up to systemic racism, apartheid, even genocide. The mechanisms are often rooted in these comparisons.
Is there anything that makes it more or less likely?
That's a crucial nuance. Research suggests that having a vague or poorly understood cultural identity actually makes prejudice more likely.
Why is that?
Because if your sense of self isn't secure, you might be more inclined to boost it by putting other groups down. Conversely, people with a strong, clear understanding of their own identity, think of immigrants who really know their family history, their cultural heritage, they tend to show less prejudice.
Because they're secure in who they are.
Exactly. Their self-esteem isn't as dependent on demeaning others. But in our world today, which is increasingly multicultural, we often face another challenge: competing identities.
Competing identities, like having to choose. or feeling pulled in different directions.
Yeah, like a constant internal negotiation. Think about the internal tug of war someone might feel navigating, say, an Asian American identity that emphasizes family obligation versus the dominant American culture often focused on individualism.
Right, those could clash.
Or someone balancing their rich native heritage with pressures from the dominant U.S. culture. These aren't just abstract ideas, they create real psychological tension, a real toll.
What kind of cool?
Well, when core identities clash significantly like this, people often experience a loss of what researchers call future time orientation,
Yeah.
meaning they have difficulty seeing themselves clearly in the future, difficulty planning long term. They can become sort of stuck, focused only on the present, unable to set and work towards future goals because their sense of a continuous self is fractured.
I could see that. Like, you don't know which you will be there in the future.
Something like that. We even see a version of this with new college graduates. They're grappling with shedding the student identity and adopting a professional one. That transition period often leads to measurable post-graduation depression.
Because they've lost one core identity before fully cementing the next.
Exactly. The ground shifts beneath their feet, identity-wise. The stakes involved in navigating these identities are incredibly high.
Wow. What an incredible journey through this paradox of identity. I mean, from the dark history that spurred its study to its amazing power for belonging, health, purpose, and then right back to those inherent risks of prejudice, discrimination that always seem to be lurking. It really is a powerful, complex force, defines so much of our human experience.
It really is. And ultimately, I think this deep dive just reinforces that delicate balance we talked about.
Right.
The need to cultivate strong, well-defined identities for ourselves, which are clearly beneficial, while actively, consciously avoiding the exclusion of others that can so easily follow.
Building bridges, not walls, as they say.
Exactly. And this understanding, it isn't just academic theory. It's a vital tool, really, for navigating our complex world. So maybe for you, our listener, here's a thought to carry forward from all this.
Yeah.
What specific positive social identities do you actively embrace in your own life? Maybe it's being part of a team or being a parent, a volunteer, an advocate for something you believe in. Think about those identities and then consider how might consciously strengthening those identities, focusing on the positive connections they bring, how might that not only enhance your own well-being and foster deeper connections, but also maybe broaden your understanding and empathy for people outside those immediate groups, helping perhaps to bridge some of the divides that social identity itself can sometimes create.